Hi there, Emma here. I am coming on today to talk to you about how did I start doing meth. Obviously this goes without saying, but I am not at all. I'm making this video for recovery, awareness, and I'm not making any kind of content to ever encourage drug use, especially not the use of meth. If you have not used meth before, that is amazing. You don't need to open that barrel. Trust me, you're gonna wish that you hadn't as soon as you open it. So I'm not encouraging drug use in any way, just making a video talking about the experience because I think it's often something that people wonder. It's something that I've wondered in the past, like how does one end up doing crystal meth? But for me, as I've made, lots of videos on my channel about Adderall, my Adderall addiction, and how I have ADHD and I was put on ADHD meds at a young age and became horrifically addicted to them. That was my drug of choice for the entirety of my addiction. But I mean, honestly, very quickly after my Adderall addiction really took hold, so when I was 17, that's when my life completely fragmented, and I was abusing my prescription and getting more Adderall from other people. I mean, I was a tweaker, but I knew that meth was incredible. Methamphetamine is incredibly similar to amphetamine. There's just one molecule that's different. Meth is a more potent, longer acting version. They prescribe meth for ADHD. Like, I knew all of that stuff. So I knew from the get-go that if I did try meth, that was going to be it. Like, I used to tell people, like, if I ever try meth, that's it. My life's over. You'll see me on the street corner and then I'll die. And honestly, that was some self-awareness, but my ways of dealing with it weren't great because I was, what I did for years after that was substitute. I was trying to do damage control. I knew that, like, Adderall, Vyvanse, and of course meth, I knew would be in the same category. Those drugs I would just completely blow up my life within days. They were my DOC, and it was like there was not even a tiny part of me that was able to still function or anything. I mean, I would just completely disappear into addiction. So my damage control was through substituting substances, which, spoiler alert, does not work at all. I did this predominantly with kratom, the like white strains of kratom that are more stimulating. And back then there was, like now, I think there's a lot of information out there about kratom addiction. Like, kratom is an opioid. It is addictive and habit forming. You do have withdrawal from it, just like other opioids. But back then it really wasn't talked about at all. I mean, now I've met a lot of people that have gone to treatment for that. And back then that wasn't even, it was just like kratom is what you use to get off opiates and that's it. I'm not saying that if that has worked for you, great. I'm just saying it's addictive. And for me, it became very out of control very quickly. And I didn't really realize what the drug actually was before I took it. And then, yeah, if you want me to make a video about that, I will. Just let me know. But anyways, I substituted with that and alcohol, which I didn't like alcohol at all, but it was an addictive substance. So I became an alcoholic. And these substances were both legal. I could obtain them very easily, and it was, I basically just used that to try to keep myself away from stimulants, because at least, I mean, my life was absolutely unmanageable and out of control, and it wasn't, I mean, the kratom caused immense suffering, because I was constantly trying to get off of it, and I got sick, and really sick, and I would get the Vivitrol. It was just this nightmare, but in terms of, like, I was still able to, like, pay my rent and go to work and go to school and things like that. Whereas if I had been on stimulants, I wouldn't have. So that was how I viewed that, right? But I think this kind of all culminated together to form, like, the perfect storm. Like, it boiled up over because, like, after so many years of, like, forcing myself to resist, by the time it was, my last relapse, I feel like it kind of just all came back out, which I feel like it needed to. Now, like, I clearly had some reservation about meth and about the things I hadn't done, and, like, this resentment that I'd been resisting, and it all had to come out, and all the chaos and consequences had to come out as well with it. So my last relapse started like they all did with kratom, because the little voice in my head would say, "Oh, that's not a real drug. That doesn't count." Which is, I knew it damn well it was a real drug, and it's not something I could use just once. Once I used it once, that was it. It's game over. But it was what I would always tell myself to rationalize using. And then once you take once you use the first time, then you're in it. So it would be always like kratom, and then within a couple weeks, alcohol. So for a couple weeks, I was doing that again, and I hate alcohol. I mean, it's a depressant. What it has done for me for as long as I can remember is it makes me cry, like hysterically. It makes me sloppy, and it makes me want to hurt myself. I mean, literally. I mean, I have done extensive damage to my body with a knife so many times while drinking. Like, it just makes me hate myself and hate life. So I was feeling like that, right? And I ended up stumbling across a dealer at the gas station while I was getting more alcohol. He was a shitty dealer, that's for sure, but he got me some cocaine. So I started doing that every day. This is like my segue to meth. And once I was very deep in the cocaine addiction, I mean, with cocaine, for me, and same thing with when I smoked crack, I feel like it would work for like a month. Like, you really feel the effects and you feel great. And then after like a month, it really fucking sucks. Because it just doesn't give you that same feeling. And you have to use so much of it because it lasts such a short period. So I was, starting to feel like, oh God, none of this seems to be working anymore. No shit. But I wasn't done. I'd come this far into the depths of hell. I was going to keep going. So one night I just became determined. I just made up my mind. I knew in the depths of my gut how big of a mistake it was. I knew. Normally when I relapsed, it always comes with this rationalization that I have to convince myself, even though it's a lie. It's always a lie. But I have to truly come up with a story that my mind can accept in that moment as reality in order to do it. At this point, of course, I was already deep in addiction, so that it's different at that point, but there was none of that this time. I knew I wasn't going to be able to stop. There wasn't like, I'm just going to do this today. Like there always was in my head, which I told myself every day for the majority of my addiction. But this time I knew. I just knew that's going to be it for me. But I made up my mind. And so went out on a mission. Very dangerous, sketchy shit was done. I mean, basically just finding tweakers in Charlotte is what happened. like all just in the fucking light rail and shit. Like, let's find a tweaker, and then he can get us meth, which did happen. And at first it didn't feel like the amazing, wonderful feeling I felt it would feel like already. But I was hooked. Despite the fact that from that point forward, I was going to have to be around tweakers, which I knew meant trouble because, I mean, I'm a tweaker myself, so I can say, you know what I mean. No one can be trusted that's using meth. Especially when you meet homeless people that are addicted to meth, because I'm telling you, the second that you turn your back at all, they're going to steal what you have. They don't care. At that point I was around, all the dealers that I was around were drug addicts themselves, like meth addicts. So that's how you know it's going to be really bad. I mean, like, you're going to get ripped off. Like, they're going to try to steal your shit. Like, very messy, and I was very naive to that world, to be honest, because I'd never really been a part of it. I've used Adderall in my own space, and now I was out, in a dangerous world. And yeah, essentially, after, within a few months, I was connected to all these different dealers in Charlotte, and, climbing up the quality ladder of product, and I made a radical decision that we needed to move back to Greensboro, where my family is, because that would fix it. The good old geographical switch up, that always does the trick. In my mind, it was just like, well, we don't know how to get meth there, so we'll be forced to stop. Like, I actually tried to get my old job back right away, which I remember being so, like, confused and sad that they did not hire me back. And now I'm like, they dodged such a big bullet. Like, I would have been a nightmare, and I would have quit, too. I would have just stopped showing up very quickly, but I had this huge fantasy delusion that everything was going to be different this time. What do you think I did? Within 2 days, I was driving back and forth to Charlotte. Almost every day, which, looking back, I'm like, why didn't I just buy larger amounts at once? Why did I have to drive back, like, every day and get enough to last me for, like, a day? Because it's like 4 hours of driving round trip. Because I lived in South Charlotte, and that's where I would go. I mean, it's just crazy. Until eventually I found better connects, better quality, cheaper, all of that. And then it was really, that point I got my footing in as a drug addict, and it was just all over. But I wasn't, like, casually exposed to meth, like, from a friend or anything. I really went out of my way to obtain it. Like I really was extra about that. But I think it was, again, so many years resisting, so many years knowing the carnage that would come, that once I was already deep into addiction, I just wanted my DOC. I was resentful. I'd spent all of this time trying to use these other substances, which doesn't work, as you can see. That I just was like, screw it, I want this. And now I am grateful for it because, again, as I've said many times before, I think I needed that to be fully ready to surrender to recovery and to just let that life go as a whole, and to realize that's not an option for me anymore. But it took a lot to get to that point, obviously, and really experiencing how scary meth is. I mean, it is a terrifying drug. But the thing is, I knew that. It's just, I mean, I really did know that. Like, that's the thing. Like, I wasn't dumb. And I had experienced the depths of Adderall addiction. Like, and I knew that meth would be 100 times worse. I knew the brain damage that it caused. I didn't understand, like, what it did to your heart or your kidneys. But I understood everything else, But I made that decision anyway. Yeah, I think that's about it. That is how I started doing math. I hope you like this video. Please take a minute to like and subscribe if you don't mind. It helps me out a lot. Let me know if you want me to cover any other topics or any ideas you might have. And until next time, take care of yourselves. Bye.